During last year's Model United Nations Conference in Washington, D.C., I had the privilege of participating in the International Court of Justice Council. Along with other delegates, I debated international rule on nuclear weapons. I developed this perspective with my AP Seminar research project, and toward the end of the conference, we had a guest speaker, Caleb Yip. Caleb, a Georgetown graduate and now a program analyst for the National Nuclear Security Administration, completely changed my perspective on nuclear weapons. Today, I wish to share the insights I've acquired. Nuclear weapons. In 2022 alone, the US spent $44 billion, China $12 billion, and Russia $10 billion developing them. Why would countries spend so much money on something that hasn't been used for decades? Paradoxically, countries make them so they never have to use them. I know, it seems odd, yet the continued manufacturing and possession of nuclear weapons is what has allowed a period of relative peace to exist for so many years. The principle that explains this is called M.A.D, Mutual Assured Destruction. The idea is simple. If you don't mess with me, I don't mess with you. The main deterrence of conflict. Before I dive into its logic and implications, let's look at the historical background of this phenomenon. When J. Robert Oppenheimer and the Manhattan Project's products were unleashed in Japan, an estimate of 214,000 people vanished, 140,000 in Hiroshima and 74,000 in Nagasaki. In effect, this bomb showed the truly destructive nature of nuclear weapons. And many countries subsequently did everything they could to possess their own bombs. In his desire for nuclear weapons, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin famously stated, "A single demand of you, comrades. Provide us with atomic weapons in the shortest possible time. You know that Hiroshima has shaken the whole world. Provide the bomb. It will remove a great danger from us." I know, eerie. As shown in his quote, Stalin believed that by possessing nuclear weapons, he would be able to protect his country from the threat of being attacked, a belief other countries would soon uphold themselves. As countries amassed nuclear weapons, new implications arose. On the one hand, these stockpiles printed full-scale wars with the potential of world-ending consequences. But on the other, they also opened the door to the threat of nuclear warfare. This dynamic created a power imbalance where nuclear armed states could easily dominate those without such weapons. The US and the Soviet Union, the main possessor of nuclear weaponry, soon found themselves in a conflict over global dominance. Yet they could not unleash armed conflict on each other due to the catastrophic effects it would have on both sides. Simply put, if either side decided to attack, the other would retaliate, and in effect, they would both face absolute destruction. This is what M.A.D means. It left them with no incentive to engage in attack, but every incentive to maintain the potential threat of attack. As the years passed, tension between the US and the Soviet Union have eased slightly, yet the threat of nuclear warfare never completely disappeared. Today, nuclear tensions remain, particularly in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, a topic I will explore later. This inevitably brings up the question, how is the continued global possession of nuclear weapons important when it comes to world peace? Ironically, extremely important. A world without nuclear weapons would be a safer, more peaceful place. Nuclear weapons are one of humanity's most atrocious inventions with effects that are truly abominable. In a perfect world, they would have never been created and we would eliminate any trace of them. But given the advantages of possession, this scenario is highly unlikely. And what are these advantages? Nuclear weapons are the perfect instrument of both attack and defense. For countries unable to produce their own nuclear weapons, their alternative solution is often forming alliances with nations that can. But this solution has proven to be unreliable, as a nation allied with the nation possessing nuclear weapons would also face nuclear retaliation by the aggressor, putting into question, would a country risk nuclear warfare for the protection of another? This question is being answered in the current Russia-Ukraine conflict. As Russia invaded Ukraine, President Vladimir Putin issued threats against any potential NATO intervention, warning of unprecedented consequences. Through nuclear signaling, Putin aims to influence decision-making and prevent Western support for Ukraine. Unfortunately, this strategy has been effective, as seen by Russia's significant territorial gains in Ukraine. So, what solutions has the world tried to implement in nuclear disarmament, and why have they shown to fail? There have been countless solutions, but countries simply do not care. And why would they? Russia has undermined international nuclear risk management by blocking the Non-Proliferation Treaty, withdrawing from the CTBT, and suspending the New START policy. All efforts to mitigate nuclear risk. But not only Russia, even the P5 members of the UN Security Council, US, China, France, Russia, and the UK have pledged to avoid nuclear disarmament, and avoid nuclear war, yet they continue to develop their nuclear capabilities and emphasize them in their defense strategies. Strategically, this makes sense. Getting rid of nuclear weapons only works if no one else has them. But given the advantage of possession, this is unlikely. Therefore, even if one country has nuclear weapons, global stability is best maintained by ensuring that multiple countries have them as well. For someone who isn't particularly interested in history, nuclear weapons, or politics, why is this relevant? It's relevant because it teaches us about the importance of being a threat, or more precisely, being respected. I'm not encouraging nations to launch nuclear attacks or individuals to behave aggressively, not at all. Instead, math teaches us about how to handle conflict, or better yet, how to prevent it. The way we handle conflict can greatly influence our everyday and future lives, and a big part of conflict dynamics is respect. Without it, we risk facing more consequences, often in harsher ways. Consider a simple example. One day, little Timmy brings his favorite red truck to the playground, but when he pulls it out, Randy takes it without asking. Instead of letting it slide, little Timmy clearly tells Randy that he cannot do it because it's his truck, so he should ask first. By asserting his boundaries, Timmy is commanding respect for himself. If he had just let Randy take his toys without asking, he wouldn't be treating himself with respect. And if he doesn't treat himself with respect, why would anyone else? Yes, this is a simple example, but actions do have consequences, and the way we impose those actions can greatly determine if those actions are repeated or not. Consequences don't have to be aggressive like many people believe them to be. In everyday lives, the consequences for our actions are seldom violent. Most of the times they come in passive forms, such as revoked opportunity, social isolation, or little Timmy confronting Randy about his boundaries. My point is that even in civilized society, we must enforce appropriate consequences to teach the people around us how we want to be treated. People will treat us how we let them treat us. And I emphasize this again, but there are thousands of ways in which we can enforce consequences. Let's look at world leaders, for example, that don't have nuclear weapons. Saudi Arabia, Canada, and Japan are a few examples. These countries command respect throughout the world without nuclear signaling. And how do they do it? Through being good to the world. What you define as good is up to you, but these countries are good by providing economic assistance to many countries. Because they're economic giants, many countries will rely on them. Furthermore, these countries also have millions of immigrants living within them. In a way, an alliance is created between the pair of countries, the where the immigrants originated from and the one where they end up. So if the country that the immigrants originated from were to attack them, they would in effect be attacking themselves. Mad, but not so mad. In a way, we can simulate this individually by becoming reliable to the people around us, collaborating and being valuable to them. These countries teach us that by commanding respect throughout the world, we too can avoid conflict by imposing consequences or potential consequences. And people, especially adults, won't always have the privilege of another person or greater force to defend them. People need to learn to be independent. Within the greater context of conflict, most of it doesn't arise from people wanting to be evil, abuse their world-destructive powers, or stealing little Timmy's toys. Most conflict arises out of a conflict of interest. Naturally, most people will pursue their own or their family's interest. This is not selfish. It's natural, even in terms of evolution. But because of this, unrelated people are bound to have interests that clash with one another. So it's crucial to protect your own interests. I cannot overemphasize this, but if we leave the protection of our interests to the trust and ability of other people, if we rely on the subjectivity of morality and ethics, oh, society has taught me that doing this is good, I assume other people will do it to me as well. If we rely on people being good, if we rely on giving people the benefit of doubt without taking charge of our own protection, we are left vulnerable. The story of Eduardo Sabarin, co-founder of Facebook, is a stark example. Sabarin was gradually ousted by Mark Zuckerberg, who diluted his share ownership in Facebook. This legal maneuvering left Sabarin defenseless, his interest steamrolled by Zuckerberg's. But in the business world, such scenarios are common. Partnerships can dissolve, and priorities can shift. And because of that, it's so important to protect your own interests. At this point, we'll examine why protecting your own interests is so important. But the principle of M.A.D applies far beyond this context. It's a fundamental truth in all of our lives. In conclusion, whether it's enduring an insult or not defending your boundaries, if you don't encourage respect, you won't be taken seriously. I invite everyone to take command of your lives, protect your interests, be mad, but not so mad. Thank you.